Hey guys, and welcome to an Art Extra with Miss Summer. Hope you've been enjoying these little extra projects with maybe your brothers and sisters, your parents, grandparents. Um, and I would love to hear back from some of you who are making them, what you've been able to make. This week we're going to do something that I wanted to do earlier in the year, but I thought this would be a great time to do it. We're going to be doing gemstones and geodes. And I saw this project and it caught my eye because I've always loved looking at stones and gems, minerals. When I was a little girl, my sister and I had a little gem collection. A lot of them weren't real, but they were little stones that looked like gems. And we had this leather pouch that we would put the gems in. We would go to gift shops at the beach or wherever we went on vacation, at a cavern maybe, or craft stores used to have bins of these gems or stones or minerals where you could buy little ones. And we would do that. We would spend our allowance on that. And we would fill up our little pouch. And then when we would get home, we would lay out all of our gems or stones and compare them. Anyways, seeing this project reminded me of that. And now that I have kids, when we go to Hilton Head in the summer, there's a store there that sells all sorts of gemstones and minerals, and you can buy tiny little pieces or you can buy statues, sculptures made out of some of these expensive gemstones, and they're really cool to look at. So we're going to make it. It's a super easy project, and I've got two projects within this Art Extra. One that's a little bit more challenging and one that's easier, so hopefully either option will work for you. The supplies that you need for the gemstone are, you have to have a ruler to make the gemstone because you need super straight lines. I used black paper for mine because I had black paper and I really liked the contrast of the gemstones, the bright color with the black. But of course you can use whatever paper you have. I used oil pastels or crayons in this project, salt for some texture, just watercolor paint, pencil. And then for my gemstones, I had these cool metallic Sharpies that I outlined all of the trapezoids and triangles inside of my gemstones with. And I also outlined my geode with it. If you have those on hand, great. If not, don't worry about it. So those are the things that you need. Now, I wanted to make a science connection with this too. If you're looking into different minerals and gemstones, you could kind of look into some of your favorites. Maybe you have a birthstone that you've always really liked, or a particular rock or mineral. There's 3 different types of rocks. There's sedimentary, igneous, and metamorphic. I wish we had time to look into that today, but we don't, but maybe you can investigate that some. Now, the other thing that anytime I think about gemstones, what I initially think of is that story with my sister and our little rock collection, and then I think of heaven. And in Revelations 21, there's a description of the New Jerusalem, and it's a really cool description of heaven. There's an angel going around measuring the different walls of the city, and he describes the city. And the description is, the foundation of the city walls were decorated with every kind of precious stone. The first foundation was jasper, the second sapphire, the third agate, the fourth emerald, the fifth onyx, the sixth ruby, the seventh chrysolite, the eighth beryl, the ninth topaz, the 10th turquoise, the 11th jacinth, and the 12th amethyst. And then it says that the 12 gates were made of 12 pearls, each gate made of a single pearl. The great street of the city was of gold, as pure as transparent glass. And when I was researching this project, I went and looked up descriptions of each of those precious stones. And the picture I got in my head of a light shining through all of those stones was this just giant rainbow. I don't know if that's what it looks like, but the description of all of these different stones, definitely, if you try to picture it in your mind, you can't, but you know it has to be beautiful. And so, anyways, that's where my thoughts went when I first looked into doing this project. That description of the new heaven one day, and then just maybe gemstones in general. Maybe you have a birthstone that you like to wear. Mine is aquamarine because I have a March birthday and I like that stone. So anyways, I wanted you to think about all those things as we begin this project. This project also relates to math because we're making we're making a polygon to make our gemstones, which is filled with triangles and trapezoids. So there's lots of different subjects here at play. All right, I'm attaching to this link a drawing guide for a polygon or gemstone that you can refer to make your gemstone. This is super helpful. So if you want to do this project, you should probably download this drawing guide as well. I looked at a couple of these to get my shapes right here. So you want to do that. And the first thing that you'll do when you pick out whichever gemstone you would like to draw, you're going to draw a contour line. And I made this one super thick so it would show up so you would see it. I drew mine with a pencil first, and then I used a fine point Sharpie, and that's what I would recommend using, but I wanted you all to be able to see it, so I outlined it with a super black thick marker so it would jump off the page for you. But I just made a contour line, and definitely I used a ruler. With this project, you have to have straight lines for this gemstone. So I just followed a simple guideline here, made a simple contour line shape. And then the next step is you want to make a series of little dots inside of your contour line. Now these dots need to be about 1 inch from the contour line, and I made several around here, you can see. And then what I did was, and I'll make one to show you, here's one. So it's about 1 inch away, a little more, a little less. So what I did is I take my ruler and I connect all of those lines, or all those dots, with a line. I connect them to kind of the corners of some of these, I connect them to the corner angles here, and I create triangles with that, and some trapezoids. So that's what I start to do. And then as I finish connecting all of those little dots I made, I go further, and I hope you can see that. I go further and I make another series of dots inside of those dots. So I make more random dots and I start connecting them inside. And I end up connecting all of these lines and creating multiple triangles and trapezoids. And you will see as you look at your reference guide and as you're doing it, how your polygon gemstone starts to fill up with triangles and trapezoids. Now, a couple of things about this: you do not want to draw too many dots because you want to have several nice big triangles and trapezoids. So you don't want to overwhelm your shape with too many dots. Just a few, enough to create a really nice pattern inside of your gemstone. So as you keep connecting those together, connecting them with the other triangles you've already made, and you'll do that using your ruler. As you continue to connect them, you'll come up with something really pretty. And it will take a little bit of time to do this. So allow a little bit of time to draw all of your line patterns inside of your polygon. After you do that, you'll end up with something like these. Next, we are going to watercolor them. Now, the way I did these is I picked the first one I did was the warm color one, and warm colors are pinks and oranges and reds and yellows. I just picked 3 shades. I picked a pink, a red, and a yellow to do that polygon with. And I started with my lightest value first. So I started with yellow, then I used pink, then I used red. For the next gemstone, I wanted to do one creating the colors of green. So I did a yellow and a blue and green together. After I watercolored all of those shapes, and I did each shape within the polygon by itself, I would watercolor one yellow and move on to another triangle or trapezoid I wanted to color yellow. You don't want to just color all of them a bunch of different colors and have all the watercolor kind of bleed together. If it does bleed some, that's fine. It'll end up looking cool, but we want each triangle and trapezoid to be distinct. So we want to space our colors around the polygon to create a lot of interest and color. Now, after I finished those, I did something, this is totally optional, but something fun that gives a cool texture to your gemstone is I took salt and I sprinkled the salt down on top of the watercolor paper while it was still wet, or whatever paper you're using. And the salt kind of absorbs some of that water as it sits there for a couple minutes, and then you can shake off the salt and it leaves this cool texture that you can see on the gemstone. And of course that's optional, but fun. And we've done that in art class before with salt and watercolor. The last step I did for this is I outlined everything with a metallic marker. I have some metallic Sharpies here. I outlined all of the lines I had made that divided up my polygon. I outlined all of them with either a silver or gold Sharpie. I really liked the sheen that it gave my gemstone and the way it made everything pop. And I did that as my last step. Of course, you could do that before you watercolored if you wanted, as long as you let these paint markers dry. And that would also be a cool effect and less messy when you go to outline. Now, if you think the gemstone project is a little too difficult, maybe you're younger, or this could just be a totally another option if you wanted to, you could make a geode. And here is a picture of a geode. Now, if you've went to those craft stores I've talked about, or gemstone stores that you see kind of in tourist areas, you've seen a geode probably before. And a geode is these cool hollow rocks that minerals are in. They kind of fill up with minerals, and then those minerals crystallize. So when you cut them open and half them open, they're filled with these beautiful crystals. A lot of them, I'm thinking of like an amethyst geode that you might see. I have some pictured in my mind that are just huge that you see on display in some of these stores that are filled with crystals. A lot of them are extremely expensive, but beautiful to look at. So here's our simple little geode. And this is made by we don't use a ruler at all for this. This is totally an organic shape. So this is going to be a lot easier. I used an oil pastel, which I have right here, or crayons to draw an organic shape on a piece of paper. And an organic shape is not geometric at all. It's not exact. It's just kind of like a free-flowing shape that you might see in nature. So I drew that with a black oil pastel, and then I drew some concentric organic shapes inside. So kind of like rings. This also almost reminds me of like the rings inside of a tree trunk. I drew 2 rings inside, and then I started watercoloring them. I did the same, did some layers of color. Have blue here. I put white oil pastel all around this one to resist the water. And in this one, I put navy and purple together and kind of let them flow together to create a pretty amethyst color. And then the last thing I did for this texture is I put salt in the middle right here. Let the salt kind of absorb some of that water and sit for a little bit. Shook it off and then got this cool texture on this geode. Now, when all of that was dry, I went back with my silver metallic marker and outlined the rim of this geode. I had initially colored it black, but sometimes with this cheaper watercolor, the black kind of looks gray, and I didn't really like that, so I went and put some metallic silver Sharpie around to create this effect. So this is something much more simple that you could do. A geode and a gemstone. I hope you enjoy this project. Again, you could always upload them to whatever class you are in Google Classroom, or send me a text with a picture of this. I would love to see what you've created. Thank you very much.